Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The top stories that we're tracking for you this evening. Despite clocking modest losses on Friday, the Nifty and the Sensex closed the week over 4% higher. MidCaps record their biggest weekly gain in 2 months with a 7% jump. India and Pakistan to extend the stoppage of military action. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh interacts with armed forces at the Bhuj Air Force Station, says India will keep Pakistan on probation until its behaviour improves. Says the IMF must reconsider its financial assistance of $1 billion that it extended to Islamabad last week. The Indian defence juggernaut keeps rolling. Top defence stocks add over 1.5 lakh crore rupees to their market cap since the start of Operation Sindoor on the 7th of May. Sources tell us the government may hike its defence budget next year. Industry expects replenishment orders worth up to 40,000 crore rupees. Turkey and Azerbaijan continue to face backlash in India for supporting Pakistan. Traders' body Kate decides to completely boycott all trade and business relations with the two nations. In Turkey, shares of baggage handler Celebi crashed 10% after India revokes its security clearance. Sources say Celebi's employees will be absorbed by other ground handling companies after the 19th of May. Vodafone Idea urges the government to support its funding attempts, says banks have not been forthcoming despite a 26,000 crore rupee equity infusion and the government becoming a 49% shareholder. Warns it may have to file for insolvency, adds this will result in heavy losses for the government. RBI board is likely to meet on the 23rd of May to consider a dividend payout to the government. Economists tell CNBC TV18 that this year's surplus transfer may top 2.5 lakh crore rupees due to forex operations and bond purchases. More financial irregularities come to light at IndusInd Bank. An internal audit report flags 674 crore rupees being incorrectly recorded as interest income in the bank's MFI book. Also identifies unsubstantiated balances of 595 crores under the header Other Assets, which the bank have offset against other liabilities in January. President Trump wraps up his 3-day West Asia visit by signing a flurry of deals worth over $200 billion with the UAE. The three-nation trip has yielded deals worth over $2 trillion for projects in areas that include defense, aviation, and artificial intelligence. Israel steps up its military operations in Gaza and the West Bank after US President Trump refloats his idea of changing Gaza into a freedom zone. Reports say over 120 Palestinians have died in the attacks in the last 48 hours. Delegations from Russia and Ukraine get ready for the first face-to-face peace talks between the two countries in 3 years, but hopes of progress are low. Ukraine's President Zelensky refuses to attend after Russia's Putin spurns his offer for an in-person meeting. Well, let's go straight to the top story this evening. India and Pakistan have decided to extend the stoppage of military action, but Operation Sindoor is not over yet. That's the Indian point of view. The Indian Army has said that confidence-building measures to reduce alertness will continue. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh visited the Bhuj Air Force Station to review operations. Bhuj is one of the military sites that Pakistan attempted to attack last week. The Defence Minister warned that India has kept Pakistan on probation until its behaviour improves. He's also called upon the IMF to reconsider providing financial assistance to Pakistan as it has again started to rebuild its terror infrastructure.
निश्चित रूप से इंटरनेशनल मॉनेटरी फंड से आने वाले $1 बिलियन के बड़े हिस्से को टेरर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को फंड करने में इस्तेमाल होगा, ऐसा मेरा मानना है। इसलिए मैं मानता हूं कि आज के समय में पाकिस्तान को किसी भी तरह की आर्थिक सहायता टेरर फंडिंग से कम नहीं है। भारत यही चाहेगा कि IMF पाकिस्तान को अपनी $1 बिलियन की असिस्टेंस पर वह पुनर्विचार करे।
Minister there asking the IMF to reconsider its $1 billion loan to Pakistan. Now, Network 18 learns that the centre is reportedly planning to send a delegation of MPs across parties to major world capitals to make India's case against cross-border terrorism from Pakistan and articulate our stance on terrorism. The Congress party has expressed its support for the move. Let's listen in to Jairam Ramesh.
सरकार की ओर से अगर कोई इनविटेशन आता है, कोई मांग आती है कि एक बहुदलीय प्रतिनिधिमंडल में कांग्रेस पार्टी भी शामिल हो, हम ज़रूर शामिल होंगे और जो कुछ हमें करना है हम करेंगे। राष्ट्रीय हित सर्वोपरि है।
That's the Congress party's Jairam Ramesh. Now, A CNBC TV18 exclusive. India's defence budget is expected to be hiked next fiscal to bolster the country's arsenal. But here's what we learned. The defence industry is expecting replenishment orders worth 30 to 40,000 crore rupees. Parikshit Luthra joins us now with more details. Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. You know, we cannot preempt what the defence budget is likely to allocate towards spending. But what are we picking up in terms of estimates on account of Operation Sindoor? What has been used and what needs to be replenished?
You know, let's start with where things stand as of now. As far as the FY26 union budget was concerned, the defence outlay was 6.8 lakh crore, 9.5% up from FY25. The capital acquisition outlay there was around 1.8 lakh crore, up 4.5% compared to FY25. Now, both these figures are likely to go up significantly. We will also see diversification. Currently, India's imports from Russia, which has been the traditional mainstay supplier of India, are about 36%. We have been diversifying. Today, US and France account for 45% of our defense imports. Having said that, in the next few months, as a result of Operation Sindoor, we expect, and this is coming from different sources in the industry, that there could be orders to replenish our ammunition stocks, weapon stocks, and this could be in the tune of anywhere between 30 to 40,000 crores. The defense budget also likely to go up, especially for indigenous acquisition. What sources and experts tell us, it is very important for the government to focus on low-cost ammunition, alternatives to scalp and hammer missiles, which are expensive, and India should have a local supply chain. At the same time, we should be buying more drones, more AI-powered drones, which reduce the role of ground forces, and more stealth technology as well. So more drones, more high-tech technology, also more low-cost intelligence ammunition, foilish penetrating radar. This is the kind of wish list that is coming from experts and the industry, and this is going to be the likely push area for the government as well in the coming months.
Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. And let's stay with the defence theme. Now, what we are seeing is in terms of defence stocks, after Operation Sindoor, we've seen the might of the Indian military and made in India arsenal being showcased. Top companies, including PSUs and private players, have added over 1.5 lakh crore rupees to their market cap since the 7th of May, with their stocks gaining anywhere between 15 and 40%. Surabhi joins us now to take us through the self-reliance story of India's defence sector and whether this is a coming-of-age story for India's defence industry. Surabhi.
Operation Sindoor has literally announced the coming of age of the Indian defense manufacturing ecosystem. And it's an ecosystem that has a lot of private sector players and, of course, the big PSU giants. Let me start by telling you about some of the weapon systems that were deployed in Operation Sindoor. We're talking about, of course, the missiles, the medium-range surface-to-air missiles, MRSAMs as they're called. Bharat Dynamics is a very key player here, not only when it comes to manufacturing these missiles, but it's a full systems integrator, and it played a huge part. The Akash weapon system, which we all know, which was critical in Operation Sindoor. This is a weapon system that has suppliers, across a long supply chain. So when it comes to the outer shell, it was manufactured by a company called Paras Defense. When we're talking about the warheads and the initiating systems, then Solar Industries was the name that was in play. And once again, Bharat Dynamics was the key systems integrator over here. The Nagastra loitering munitions, this was a war that was fought in the sky with drones, and the anti-drone systems came into play as well. And here, Nagastra 1 and 2, which is what Solar has been manufacturing, that was, in key play. I want to talk about some numbers as well, the size of the opportunity in the industry. The projected estimated output by the Indian defense sector for FY25 is 1.75 lakh crore rupees. That number is expected to swell, or was expected to swell, to 3 lakh crore rupees by FY29. But a lot of analysts that we've been speaking to say that these targets will be hit much earlier now because the production is being ramped up, because companies are running on double and in some cases triple shifts. So all of this is getting accelerated. 193 contracts signed by the Ministry of Defense in FY25, and a whopping 92% of those actually went to domestic suppliers. By value, this is number of contracts. By value, 80% of the contracts by value actually went to local manufacturers. So that's really saying something about the extent of our Atmanirbharta. I just want to quickly talk about some of the names here. Many of them you already know. Bharat Dynamics, like I said, when it comes to missile systems, and it's right up there. It's also a key systems integrator. BEL when it comes to defense communication and electronics. It's a big player in the, of course, in the Akash New Age weapon system, land-based radars, naval systems, tanked armored vehicles, and all the electronic systems that go there. BEL plays a part. HAL needs no introduction, whether it's the Su-30s or the other aircraft. It recently won a massive order, HAL, 62,700 crore rupee order for the light combat aircraft that it will deliver both to the Indian Air Force as well as to the Army. And then, of course, Mazgaon Dock, Garden Reach Shipbuilders, Cochin Shipyard, the frigates, the destroyers, the corvettes, all of them being manufactured locally right here in India. But it's not just the PSUs. The private sector players are really, notching up the game as well. Of course, there are giants like Tata Advanced Systems, which are, into a range of weapon systems, whether it's launchers, artillery gun systems for the Akash surface-to-air missile systems. There's also the, advanced towed artillery gun systems, the ATAGS as it's called, and of course, a range of other optronics, radars, etc. Solar industries, like I mentioned, when it comes to warheads and bombs, then this is a key emerging player. In fact, whether you talk about missile systems like, BrahMos or many of the others, the Pinaka multi-barrel rocket launchers, Solar is a big player in a lot of these projects, and it's a big supplier. Astra Microwave, big name when it comes to radars and electronic, warfare systems. And then there is Paras Defense as well. Again, the rocket and missile programs, warfare, surveillance, naval systems, tanks, and armored vehicles. This is not a fully exhaustive list, by the way. There are many other companies, many other SMEs as well. But the entire ecosystem, when it comes to defense, self-reliant manufacturing, indeed thriving now in India.
All right, Celebi, many thanks. That's India's defense story. But the other big story that we're continuing to track here on CNBC TV18, shares of Celebi plunged 10% on the Istanbul Stock Exchange. This a day after the Indian government revoked security clearance of Celebi's Indian subsidiary. Now, what will this mean for the company's employees in India? Madiha joins us with the latest details. Madiha, what does this mean for airports who are in business with Celebi? Airports like Mumbai, Delhi and others have decided to cancel their contracts with Celebi and move ground handling to other service providers. Take us through what's happening on the ground today.
Well, soon after the government's notice, all the concerned airport operators issued statements announcing termination of contract with Celebi. The Civil Aviation Ministry announced that all employees working with Celebi will be transferred to other ground handlers at the 9 airports. We learned from sources that airport entry permits for Celebi staff will continue to be valid until the 19th of May, after which the Bureau of Civil Aviation and Security will issue new permits to these employees under their new employer. But these are around 10,000 employees who handled nearly 160 flights daily across these 9 airports, which is Mumbai, Delhi, Cochin, Kannur, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Goa, Ahmedabad and Chennai. So issuing entry permits on the new employer's name may take more time, and BCAS may have to extend the validity of the existing permits of these 10,000 employees. Now, Celebi provided key services like terminal handling, ramp handling and cargo handling at the 9 airports. It also operated the cargo terminal at the Delhi airport. So now all of Celebi's assets, including the staff, are likely to be taken over by the other ground handling companies. Whether the existing one or new, we don't know as yet. As per India's ground handling policy, there has to be 3 ground handling companies at airports where annual passenger traffic exceeds 10 million. So at Delhi airport, the handlers are Celebi, AI SATS, Air India SATS and Bird Worldwide Flight Services. We learned that Celebi's ground handling at Delhi airport will be transferred to AI SATS and Bird, while GMR will take over the cargo terminal. At Mumbai airport, the 3 ground handlers are government-owned Air India Airport Services Limited, Celebi and Bird Worldwide Flight Services. Now, sources say that Mumbai Airport is onboarding a new company, Indo-Thai, to transfer Celebi staff and assets. Mopa Airport in Goa had Celebi as the sole player. It is yet to be decided if the operator GMR will take over or some other company will be brought in.
Madiha, many thanks for joining us. That is the latest on the government's decision to revoke the security clearance for ground handling services provided by Celebi, and now what happens from here on. Indian businesses have also started boycotting Turkey and Azerbaijan after their opposition to India's Operation Sindoor and their support for Pakistan. Traders from 24 states held a conference in Delhi and have decided to halt all trade and commercial engagement with both countries, including travel and tourism. The Confederation of All India Traders has urged the film industry to avoid shooting in these countries. The resolution by the traders also warned corporate houses from shooting promotional ads there. Earlier, the All India Cine Workers Association announced a complete ban on Turkey for film shoots and cultural collaborations. Let's talk about the markets, witnessing huge gains this week with the Nifty and the Sensex up 4%. Each broader markets continue to see large intraday buying. The MidCap index recording its biggest weekly gain that we've seen in the last 2 months, up by about 7% today, 7% this week. The Sensex up almost 4% and the Nifty up 4% as well. Prashant joins us now to wrap up the market action. What a week it's turned out to be, Prashant, for India and for the Indian markets.
It's been a good week, no doubt about it. Broader markets, of course, much better. And remember what we started off with. You know, last weekend, as we go into this weekend, just to remember last weekend, Saturday and Sunday, there was those US-China talks. Monday morning, Asia time, we got news that there perhaps is some sort of a deal, a handshake deal, which is being worked out. Tariffs are being lowered. The tariffs were being lowered to much better levels and the most optimistic expectations. And generally, that kind of has triggered a bit of a risk-on, tactical risk-on kind of environment across the board. And that continued broadly through the course of this week. So I'm not going to go into what happened on Friday specifically, but the week, I think, gives you the real picture. The Nifty is up 4% Friday to Friday. The Nifty Bank is up 3%. The mid-cap index is up 7% this week, and the small-cap index is up 9%. So these are large moves. Now, on the Nifty, you had gains coming through with names like Adani Enterprises, Hero MotoCorp, about 14% on both these, Jio Financial Services and Shriram Finance, which were also strongly higher. The one sector of the week, without a doubt, is defense. Bharat Electronics, 15%, but that's, I mean, smaller than the rest. Garden Reach, 38%, Cochin Shipyard, 37%, Midhani, 31%, Zentech, 27%, Data Patterns 24%, and Paras Defense was up about 23% as well. In the broader market, you know, a few names: Apar Industries, big gains this week, 35%, eClerks 35%, Rights 34%, Kirloskar Engines 30+, Titagarh, Birla Corp, and Ircon were some of the other names which did very, very well. On the downside, not very much actually. KPR Mills was down about 9.5%, Chambal Fertilizer, Naveen Fluorine, United Breweries, Muthoot Finance, but, you know, these are single-digit losses as compared to the massive gains that I pointed out earlier. The big headlines, I mean, I think are still coming out of what US President Donald Trump wants to do. And, I mean, there are so many things up in the air, which I think remains the focus point. I think from an India perspective, will some of the recent discomfort with regards to, you know, the comments made by Trump and potentially the trade deal taking a bit of a backseat, will that be put on once again? I think that is what markets will be closely watching. Back to you.
Yes, we will be watching that closely. And, of course, the next round of negotiations between India and the US on the trade front expected to kick off next week. We will head to a break. But up next, Vodafone Idea urges the government to support its funding attempts, warns it may have to file for insolvency. That and more when we return. Cash up, Vodafone Idea has urged the government to support its funding attempts. Sources have told CNBC TV18 the company says that if it fails to receive support from banks and the government, it will have to file an insolvency plea in the NCLT, impacting more than 200 million subscribers. Ashmit joins us now with more. Ashmit, you know, this continues to be Vodafone's SOS to the government. We've already seen the government become the largest shareholder with a 49% stake in the company. Now, what exactly is Vodafone seeking and why?
Well, just yesterday, we were the first to report that Vodafone Idea has reached out to the highest court of the country, fresh application seeking AGR relief on account of the interest and the penalty burden. Now what we understand is that before reaching out to the Supreme Court, they had also knocked on the doors of the government as a last throw of the dice. In that letter, Vodafone Idea has painted a gloomy picture. Vodafone Idea says that without government support, the company could very well head into insolvency and will not survive beyond FY26. Now, speaking of that letter, in that letter, what Vodafone Idea argues is that without government support, the banks are not stepping up. Promoters have pumped in 26,000 crore rupees. Banks are not stepping up. That's affecting capex. That will affect the operations. The company will not survive beyond FY26. Could head into insolvency. And speaking of insolvency, the letter then goes on to say that this insolvency will adversely affect all stakeholders. And by stakeholders, Vodafone Idea also making a reference to the government, saying that it holds 49% now. It is a partner as far as this company is concerned. That as far as the government stake is concerned, the value will be brought to naught in case Vodafone Idea goes into insolvency. That the spectrum dues that the government is hoping to recover, 1.15 lakh crore rupees, that will also be brought to naught. It will adversely affect over 200 million customers, will affect the Digital India mission. So clearly painting a gloomy picture, saying that the government now needs to step in or else the company could go into insolvency. The government, importantly, however, on its part, believes that its hands are tied on account of the Supreme Court's AGR judgment.
Well, that's essentially Ashmit reporting that Vodafone Idea says it will move the insolvency and bankruptcy court if the government doesn't step in and provide further relief in terms of waiving those AGR dues. It's also moved the Supreme Court. Another CNBC TV18 exclusive, the RBI board is likely to meet on the 23rd of May to consider its dividend payout to the government. Economists tell CNBC TV18 this year's surplus transfer may top 2.5 lakh crore rupees. In fact, it could even be significantly higher. Sapna is standing by with more details. Sapna, take us to the range that economists are working with in terms of what could be another bumper dividend payout by the RBI to the government this year.
Absolutely, and the numbers are really big. They range anywhere from 2.5 lakh odd crores as the baseline number that may be given out by Reserve Bank of India, as high as 3.5 lakh crores. So that's the range that we are talking about. But having said that, let's look at the numbers also. So 2.56 lakh crore odd, that's the overall head that the GOI has kept in terms of dividends from Reserve Bank of India, and also includes dividends from banks and FIs. So if you deduct that, around 220 can be roughly estimated as actually the target that they expect from RBI in terms of a dividend payout. Now, against that, the range that we're talking about is around 2.5 lakh odd crores to 3.5 lakh odd crores. So that is pretty significant. Now, having said that, the reasons that are being still given out in terms of why the number could be again huge for this financial year. Two things. A, the forex operations by the RBI, which have seen a huge jump. And second, their bond purchases also in terms of liquidity infusions that have been happening since the last couple of months. Now, what we're hearing from economists is the fact that, say, for example, in the last financial year, around $150 billion worth of dollar sales had happened, or rather RBI had done. Against that, RBI had booked around 83,000 crores worth of gains. Now, what they are saying is that there has been a 2.5 time jump in the dollar sales done by RBI in the financial year gone by. So keeping that in mind, it's likely that the exchange gains from the dollar sales are going to be massive. So that's one reason, one trigger why the dividend could be again a bumper one. And second, of course, the bond purchases that have been happening in terms of making sure that there is enough liquidity in the market. Now, economists are also saying that this dividend number will have other implications. Basically, it will also easen out the wrinkles in terms of the liquidity situation in the market. They're also expecting that if that happens, then down the line, open market operations can also come down. So let's wait and watch what happens on that 23rd May board meeting of Reserve Bank of India.
Yes, we have a few days to go. Sapna, appreciate you joining us. It is going to be another bumper dividend from the Reserve Bank for the government. That is Sapna's story there. The National Company Law Tribunal has agreed to hear IRDA's insolvency plea against Gensol. The court issued a notice to Gensol to respond to the insolvency plea. Remember, IRDA moved the NCLT citing a default of 510 crore rupees. More financial irregularities have come to light at IndusInd Bank. An internal audit report flagged that 674 crores was incorrectly recorded as interest income in the bank's MFI book. This error was rectified by the 10th of January this year. The department also identified unsubstantiated balances of 595 crores under the header Other Assets. This amount was offset against other liabilities in January. President Trump has concluded his first official tour to West Asia, bagging investments claimed of more than $2 trillion. Hailed the Gulf nations for their deepening ties with the US, Trump has made his last stop in Abu Dhabi, where he participated in bilateral meetings at the presidential palace. He announced deals more than $200 billion during his visit today.
Donald Trump's Gulf tour took him to the United Arab Emirates on Thursday, and the visit was marked by the signing of more deals, valued in all at $200 billion. That followed a pledge by the UAE in March to invest some $1.4 trillion in the US over 10 years. Trump hailed that deal in a meeting with country President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan.
And all I could say is thank you very much. We will work very hard to deserve it.
Among the deals announced Thursday was another order for Boeing. UAE airline Etihad said it would buy 28 big jets from the aerospace giant, including 787s and 777s. That followed news of Boeing's biggest ever order for wide-body jets a day before, when Trump visited Qatar. Also finalised in Abu Dhabi was a plan for the largest AI campus outside the US to be built in the UAE. Reuters sources said the deal would give the country expanded access to AI chips from NVIDIA. Company boss Jensen Huang was seen conversing with Trump at the palace on Thursday. A White House fact sheet said other deals included a partnership between US and UAE oil firms to expand oil and gas production. It valued that agreement at $60 billion. However, US lawmakers, including Bernie Sanders, on Thursday sought to block further arms sales to the country. That's over allegations that UAE forces are involved in Sudan's civil war.
Well, that is President Trump's visit to the Middle East. U.S. House Republicans have proposed a law which would impose a tax of 5% on all remittances sent outside the country by immigrants. The House aims to pass the immigrant remittances bill by the 26th of May. India is the world's top recipient of remittances, with $83 billion sent from individuals in other countries annually. If the law is passed, for every transfer of 1 lakh rupees, 5,000 rupees will go to the United States federal government. And that could be a hit there as far as the Indian diaspora is concerned. That is expected to be taken up around the 26th of May in the US. But with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV18. Stay tuned.